Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to In Deep Geek. This is my first ever Westworld live stream, so welcome. And this is also my very first ever solo live stream. So go gentle on me. If you've tuned in hoping to see Justin Thomas, who I'm sure a lot of you know, the original plan was that he was going to be part of this. Unfortunately, something came up, so he can't be here today, but we've been chatting and he's really excited to come next week. So next Tuesday, same time, here on my channel, 6 p.m. EST, Justin and I will be talking Westworld. So do tune in for that. But I decided, as I got the slot, I would go ahead with this anyway, and I'll make this a Q&A, quite interactive. So this is going to be led by you. Great to see a lot of people already there in the chat. I'll come and say hi to you in just 1 second. The way we'll do this, I've already got a couple of questions come through on Twitter, so we'll deal with them. I also thought I would just sort of give my overview of what I think season 2 has got in store for us. I'm sure a lot of you saw my season 2 trailer video that I did a while ago. I've had a few thoughts about that, so I thought I might just go through that. But as I said, this is led by you, and I'm going to be taking any questions that you have. Just pop them down there in the chat. Obviously, any super chats, I'll come to them straight away. But any other questions you've got, just put them down there. Let's start with a few hellos. Emilio is there. Living My Rhapsody. Hi, I got your questions on Twitter, so I'll definitely be covering them. True to You. Sonia, Costume CEO. Hi, you were on here live streaming with just a couple of weeks ago. Great to see you. Kerry McDonald, you're not late, don't worry. You've come just at the right time. Amy True, Chi G. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all. Shall I start off with a couple of questions I had on Twitter, and then I'll come to anything you've got coming on in the chat room. So from Mary Popovich asked, do you think Dolores' rebellion is part of the game, a special feature for the Man in Black? I think this is a really good question. I know you sort of followed that up by saying this is like really obvious. I don't think it is. I think this is actually really quite central to what season 2 is all about, because it's about what was Ford doing in season 1. Season 1, the showrunners have told us, is all about, we have to view it as a prequel to season 2. Season 2 and beyond is what Westworld is really about. Season 1 was just setting the scene. So the question is, was Ford telling the truth when he was talking to Delores and Bernard in the last couple of episodes of last season? Was he actually thinking that the hosts had gained sentience, and was he really wanting them to be free, to break free from the yoke of the humans, from the guests? If so, then the answer to this question is no. And I think that's actually right, probably. Personally, I don't think that this is just some big thing that Ford has set up for the Man in Black, for William. So I think the offshoot of Ford's plan is that the Man in Black has got what he wanted, which is a feeling of reality, a feeling of real challenge, a feeling of being alive almost. And the thing about the Man in Black's story is that actually it sort of mirrors a lot of what the hosts are going through, because he is wanting to feel human. He's feeling sort of dead inside a lot of it. And then he's thinking that through the maze, he can gain some kind of extra level, something where the danger is real. And at the very end of season 1, we see that he finally, when he gets hit by that gunshot, finally he is feeling that. So in answer to the question, do I think it's part of the game for the Man in Black? I think probably no. But with all of these things, we just have to say maybe, because they've been playing with us in season 1. They're going to carry on playing with us going forward. So I hope that answers your question there, Mary. Let's just have a look here. Who else has come up? Tim has appeared. Aaron is here. Amberlyn, hi Amberlyn, great to see you. Who else has appeared that I've not said hi to? Robbie, Mason, great stuff. I'll pick up. I'll see a few questions are coming through already. I'll pick up a couple from Living My Rhapsody that are, I think, quite good starter questions as well. Who was just asking simply who are my favorite characters and why. And I think for me, I loved Ford. Anthony Hopkins I thought was amazing. I thought Tandy Newton was amazing as a Maeve. But I really, as a character, I love Bernard or Arnold. I thought that he was the most interesting. I thought that this kind of understanding of who he is going to play such a big part in season 2. This idea that maybe, yes, he now knows he's a host, but he's also got Arnold, one of the original creators of the park there, as part of his DNA. And I think the outworking of that is going to be fascinating part of season 2. So I think at the moment, that's who my favorite character is. That may change. You also asked who my least favorite character is. I think this is quite a tough one. But for me, probably someone like Logan, simply because I don't think the character has developed much. I think we saw who Logan was going into the park, and he kind of stayed like that all the way through. There wasn't much character development. Now, I've got quite high hopes. Season 2, we might see that. But in season 1, I don't think that really happened. So I didn't really engage with the character too much. So, yeah, that's my favorite and least favorite characters. Let's get into some of these questions. There's a lot going on already. Who have we got? So Tim, we've got some questions about Game of Thrones. Now, this one, I'm very happy. On Thursday, we're going to be talking Game of Thrones. So I'm very happy to cover them then. I want to focus mostly on Westworld today. That's okay. Sorry, Tim. If you tune in on Thursday, or in fact ask me on Twitter, very happy to answer them. Robbie Mason says chances that medieval world gets introduced. Now, I don't know whether you've spotted it, guys, but one of the things that HBO have done, which I think is brilliant, is that they've done a huge amount of sort of viral, under the radar kind of advertising for season 2, including a couple of websites for Delos, the Delos Incorporation. And one of those, I'll try and put a link down in the description afterwards. One of those included the different worlds that they had that you could go and visit. One of them was Westworld. There were 6 different worlds they had there. One of them was Westworld. The second one, the camera shot sort of glitched a little bit, but it looked like Japanese buildings. And this seems to be Samurai World. We saw at the end of season 1, Maeve walked past a number of characters who looked quite samurai-like, and there was a logo there, SW, so we're thinking this is Samurai World. I think she's going to visit there in season 2. And there were 4 more worlds that it said are not yet open to the public. Do I think the medieval world will get introduced? Not in season 2, I think. Maybe later. Maybe somewhere in like seasons 3, 4, and 5. Maybe they'll introduce a new world each season. I don't know. So is it there? I think probably. But not yet, I'm afraid. So I hope that one answers that. Laura D, hi. Great to see you. Kerry says, I don't understand why Ford willingly let himself be killed. I'm so hoping that wasn't really him. Kerry, I'm with you. I loved that character of Ford. it felt a bit odd to me too, I have to say. It probably was him, but the way that the show has been, it's been we can't be sure. It could have been. We saw Ford in his own sort of off-grid laboratory. He was building a host. Maybe he was building a host of himself. Maybe that was who it was who got shot at the end. There is actually not much information we've got going on. So I also hope that was not Ford. But I think regardless of that, we will see Anthony Hopkins again, because we've got a number of different timelines. I think we will go back. I will think we'll see him again in the past, and it's entirely possible that we'll see him again in the future, whether that's actually him and his character or a host version of him. And the kind of the philosophical messages coming out here very much are, does it matter? If you've got the DNA of a person in you as a host, if you've got the thought patterns, if you've got the memories, the experiences, are you that person? Was it Ford? The bigger question for me is, does it matter whether it was Ford? I think that's the question that they're putting to us. And we've had our first super chat, Costume CEO. Thank you so much. That's amazing. 20 Canadian dollars. Not sure if we discussed this, but do you think Maeve is Charlotte Hale's mother? Wow. We didn't discuss that. I'm not sure. That's a really good one. I've not thought about that. I'll be honest with you. My first instinct is probably no. And the reason why I think it's probably no is because Felix hunted down where Maeve's daughter was. He handed over a note that had sort of like coordinates that said where Maeve's daughter was, and the implication there was that this was somebody who was in one of the worlds. I think it said World 1, which we assume is Westworld, but I suppose it could be Samurai World. Maybe that's how Maeve gets there. But the implication was that this was Maeve's daughter is somebody in Westworld somehow. So I think that Charlotte Hale is actually a human. I think the question is what happens to her, because the last thing we saw with her was her being one of the people at that party when Dolores suddenly went shooting. So for me, the big question there is what happens to her. And I think that one of the things that Delos and the humans will be doing is some kind of search and rescue mission for whoever might have survived. I think that's one of the things we saw in the trailer, was the guys in a Jeep going out there. I think they saw a lot of dead bodies. I think they're going to try and find some survivors, and I think she's one of them. So in answer to the question, do I think Maeve is Charlotte Hale's mother? I don't think so. It's possible. It is definitely possible, but I don't think so. But thank you for the super chat. That's fantastic. Let's see what else we've got going on here. Justin Haynes says Dolores, if she's awakened, should be on her own, but this show is hard as hell to predict. I'm not sure what the hosts even are. Yeah, so Dolores, let's just pick up on Dolores for a moment. Dolores was a lot of the focus of season 1, and it was her journey through the maze that Arnold initially set up, and then Ford allowed to stay there, to let Dolores go through to try and achieve this kind of self-consciousness. So a lot of the focus was on her. Now, obviously at the end of season 1, she has then achieved this self-awareness. She has achieved consciousness. But the thing that I think people keep on missing with her is that even if she has achieved this does not mean that she's suddenly this incredibly self-aware person. She's only just become self-aware. She is young. She's just like a baby. She's incredibly suggestible. What we saw at the end of season 1 was Ford leaving a gun on the side and saying, hey, you know what? These humans have done really bad things to you. What do you think you should do? And she went out and did it. So she's yes, she's aware that of what thoughts are coming from her, and she sees the difference between herself and the other voices in her head, but she is still very impressionable. And what we see going forward into season 2 is not this great mature figure. We see someone who is just striking out based upon the last suggestion she had put in her head. So I think we can contrast that to Maeve. Now, Maeve is a very different figure. Maeve, as far as we can tell, the plan was not for her to gain consciousness. The plan, as far as we can tell from Ford's programming of her, is that she was going to get on that train and escape. Now, she then sat and she saw the mother and child, and this triggered thoughts in her own mind. And if you read interviews with Jonathan Nolan, it's very clear that's the moment that she gains self-consciousness. Now, that is actually a journey that she's gone through herself. Yes, Ford was behind all of this, but this was something that she did herself. So she, as well as being self-conscious like Maeve, she's reached this point with huge powers. Dolores, yes, she will have an army and she'll be doing all of the sort of the big fighting and all the rest of it. But Maeve, sorry, has almost godlike powers when you think about it. She is she has the ability to tell other hosts what to do. We saw that a number of times during the season, that she could just go up and suggest things to them and make them do it. She changed the programming of Hector and Armistice to make them come with her. She zooped up her own intelligence up to the maximum. She is an astonishing figure. In the trailer we saw with all those cattle, that was one of the scenes that they adapted a little bit for the trailer. They slowed it down, made it look more dramatic, but that was her controlling those cattle, because she has an ability to control other hosts now, of not just humans but other created hosts. So there's a difference between those two characters, and whereas Delores seems to be the figurehead, actually Maeve, I think, is the character we need to be paying more attention to. Okay, let's pick up on a couple of other questions from Twitter. I will come back into the chat in just one moment. Living My Rhapsody also asked, is there anything I would have done differently in season 1? And I honestly have to say no. I loved season 1. Maybe in a couple of seasons' time, I will be able to look back and say, oh, I wish they'd done more here or there, but it worked so well for me. It was such a brilliant season. This was, if you didn't know, this was the highest rated first season of anything ever on HBO, higher than Sopranos or Game of Thrones or The Wire or anything. This was the best received first season of anything that's happened on HBO, and I think that says an awful lot about the quality of it. So personally, no, there would actually be nothing I would change. And the other question was, what would I want the opening scene to be of season 2? I think it's a great question. Personally, I want not to have the obvious opening scene. The obvious opening scene would be the follow-up to what happened with Dolores shooting everyone. I don't think that we will get there. I think that they will go somewhere else completely. I would actually really like the first scene to be something completely left field, like in the trailer there was a very quick shot of a party, a dinner party out there. And I think that I would love that to be the moment that we actually go back to the old 30, 35 years ago timeline, and we see William re-emerge. I think we're going to have a huge amount of this plot of how did William actually get control of Delos as an organization, and I think Logan was at that party, and I would love the opening scene to be Logan there turning around, seeing William, and it's like, so what happened in the park? Was that for real? Are you now a completely different person? And I think that would be an amazing way to start season 2. But whatever it is, I don't want it just to be a complete follow-on from what happened at the end of season 1. Okay, let's go back into the chat. Let's see what's going on. Living My Rhapsody, you're very welcome. Who else have we got? Ade Akili, hi there, welcome, good to see you. Let's have a look back, see if we can get more questions. Right, apologies for the just quickly flicking through there. Emilio asks, do you think some of the hosts feel more human than some of the players in the park? This is, for me, the biggest question we've got coming into season 2. I've got a whole series of questions. Perhaps we can get onto this in a little bit. But for me, the biggest question coming onto season 2 is which of the hosts are now self-aware. We know Dolores is, we know Maeve is, but Ford created that whole extra army. We saw one of them was Clementine from the bar. But there were a whole load of these old decommissioned hosts who then came and shot at the man in black and so on. Are they fully self-aware? It's not clear. We don't know. Are we actually in a situation where there's only a handful who are and all the rest are just following those? Or are we in a situation where you have a completely new race, a completely new species, I should probably say? So do they feel more human? I don't think that's quite the right way of looking at it. I think that the hosts are a completely new species. They don't see themselves, or they shouldn't see themselves, as human. I think they are, or should think of themselves as being a completely new species. They work differently. Yes, they might look the same, but there's no reason why they have to look the same. You could build a completely different body shape and download the host's memories and thoughts and feelings and experiences and everything into that, and that would be a host just as much as a human body would be a host. So do I think some of the hosts feel more human than some of the players in the park? Not. I don't think that's quite the right way that I would look at it. In terms of the people in the park, I think the man in black is the prime example of someone who is there searching for something. I think he feels numb, or he did feel numb, following the death of his wife and his daughter leaving. He said, you know, this is why he was doing things in the park, because he wanted to feel human. And so he didn't, and he wanted experiences that he thought would make him feel more human. Okay, let's scroll down here. Will we see? This is from Amber Lynn. Will we see Elsie again? This is an excellent question. So we've got there are two characters here, I think, that we can that have quite similar stories at the end of season 1. There was Elsie and there was Stubbs. Now, if you recall, Elsie, we last saw her when Bernard came up behind her and sort of strangled her. Stubbs was taken by the Ghost Nation. Now, both of those groups, as far as we can tell, were controlled by Ford. So what he seems to have been doing with that, also with what Maeve's storyline was that he was getting people out of the way who were investigating what he was doing, who he thought might cause problems for him. He was getting them out of the way so that he could do what he wanted. Now, we saw in the trailer that Stubbs is back. So presumably Ghost Nation released him, or he escaped. Elsie, I think, probably the same. I would not be surprised if she reappears. We don't know, but I think she probably will. So yeah, I hope that answers that, Amber Lynn. Clint says, how do you think Dolores and Maeve will react to each other when they meet, both being cognitive? Good question. First of all, will they meet? They only really met in season 1 in that really short scene when Dolores turns around and gives the trigger to Maeve. These violent delights have violent ends. If you don't know what I'm saying about that with the trigger, then do have a look back at my my Maeve video that I did, because that phrase was a trigger to both Dolores and Maeve from Ford. How will they respond to each other when I think that is fascinating. I think that really will depend on where both of those characters are at when they meet, because Dolores, as we've seen, she's there. She's from what we saw in the trailer, she's going to be hunting down the humans. She's going to be leading an army. The rebellion is going to be led by Dolores. Maeve, actually, although I'm sure she's going to be wreaking some havoc, actually she seems to be motivated as much as anything else by compassion and by her love for her daughter. That's what seems to be the thing that is driving her right now. So we will be seeing her going looking for her daughter. And also, it was a kind of an easy thing to miss, but she actually made a step that I think in the longer term in Westworld is going to be one of the big things to look out for, which is the recognition that just because somebody's not from your species doesn't mean that they're necessarily on the other side. Felix, she at the end, near the end of that last episode, she says, "You know, you make a terrible human," and I mean that as a compliment. She recognizes that Felix is different. He's not like all these other people who have oppressed her and all the rest of the hosts all this time. He's actually being kind to her. I mean, we can say a huge amount of things about Felix, but she sees something different in him. And I think that the long game here is going to be a matter of people on both sides recognizing that just because somebody is from a different species, humans recognizing that hosts may not be all evil, hosts recognizing that humans may not be all evil, I think is the long run. Dolores, I think, is a long way from that understanding. Maeve, I think, is starting to get there. I think Bernard will get there a lot quicker than everyone else. Okay, let's just have a look here. Mr. Collar 123. In the trailer scene where Peter Abernathy gets tortured, this might not be him, but James Delos, who looks similar. In the background, we see possibly young Ford. Do you think Ford killed Logan's dad? A lot of questions in there. I've looked at that screenshot a few times. I think it is Peter Abernathy. It could be James Delos. They do look very similar, sort of older-ish white guys with a beard. But I think that was Peter Abernathy. The question for me is whether or not that's in the present day or whether that's back in the past, because again, we're going to be working on multiple timelines here. The reason why he is important, or there are two reasons why he is important. The first was that he was the host that kept hold of that trigger. These violent delights have violent ends, and then said it first to Dolores. But secondly, and I think most importantly, if you remember, there was this kind of it was slightly underplayed, but this storyline about getting the information out from Westworld. This was what Delos, the company, wanted. They thought, you know what, the real value in this is all the information that we gather. And when you think about what the information might be, there is so much of it, not just how do you make these hosts, which, you know, any kind of military force would be interested in how you make these hosts that you can just rebuild and send back out again, a lot cheaper than having actual humans in your army, I'm sure. But also the people who go in there are the richest people, the most influential people in the entire world, because it's an incredibly expensive park to be going to. And if you look at the terms and conditions on that we've seen on the websites, they have to give away their DNA. There's huge amounts of information about how they react to things, what they want to do, where their different predilections might be. This is a lot of incredibly valuable information about the most important and influential and richest people in the entire world. That is information that Delos wants to get out. And at I think it was the second to last episode, Charlotte Hale told Lee Sizemore to download that information into Peter Abernathy and then get Peter Abernathy to go out, to smuggle him out with all the information in his brain. So we didn't really see what happened with the rest of that plot, but if the information did get there, if it is logged in his brain, then that is going to be a massive thing that Delos as an organization are going to be hunting for. James Delos will, I think, be a really important character, and I think that will perhaps be in the earlier timeline when we see how William takes on and takes over Delos Incorporated. Do I think Ford killed Logan's dad? I wonder whether it was William. I think Ford at this stage is not the Ford that we know him now, but that will be one of the big stories, I'm sure, going forward through season 2. Okay. Amy True says, do you think anyone else will turn out to be a secret host like Bernard? I hope not. I actually hope not. It's possible that they will, but for them to actually be a secret host, they have to be somebody who is quite close to Ford. Now, so all of these other characters that we see, the human characters, people like Elsie and Stubbs, he wouldn't have had to have them captured or killed or whatever that he did to them. So I think they're pretty clearly human. Charlotte Hale, I think, is almost certainly a human as well. Lee Sizemore, again, he's a little bit too stupid to be a host, I honestly think. So I think the answer is probably no. I certainly can't see that Logan or the Man in Black will be hosts. I think that would just be a little bit stretching the idea too far. So I'm not saying no, definitely no, but probably not in my view. Kerry McDonald, I was thinking how much Stubbs looks like one of the Hemsworth brothers, and he is. He is, yes, absolutely. I lose track of which one he is, but he's definitely a Hemsworth. Chicken Lipstick says, have we addressed the idea that this is all William's form of suicide? Now, that is a fascinating idea, because he owns the park effectively, and he is looking for a way to have a real thrill with real danger, and I think that he wants the risk. Whether this is him trying to actually die is quite a deep question, I think, but this is definitely him wanting the chance that he might die. I don't think that he is influencing Ford in any way, or he influenced Ford in any way. I think this Ford's storyline is separate. I think that he was wanting things for his own reasons, and William just happens to be there, and he had to keep him sweet. But in terms of his own motivations, yeah, it's possible. I don't think he probably thinks of it that way. I think he just wants the danger, and he accepts the risk that he might die as part of it. How do I think, Kerry McDonald again, how do I think the Ghost Nation will be involved? Wow, this is another massive question. The Ghost Nation will be more involved this season than last season. That much I think we know. There is a named actor who is going to be a member of the Ghost Nation. Perhaps this is something, I know Justin's looked into this a lot more than I have, so perhaps this is something we can look at in detail next time. So remember the question. Personally, I think that the fascinating thing about them is the fact that they seem sort of in tune with the park. Ford used them, but they were very much this kind of like linked in to what the park was all about. If you remember right back near the beginning of the season, when the Man in Black was wandering around with that scalp with the map inside it of the maze, he got that from one of the Native American hosts. And the reason why he scalped him was because he thought that they had extra deep knowledge about all of this. And you'll see there was another bit when they seem to have some kind of religion based around the guys in big radioactive suits who sort of clean up after one of the hosts is killed. So how do I think they will be involved more? It's really, we haven't got many clues, is the honest answer. But I think that they will be this slightly independent force who are not there as part of Dolores's army. I don't think that they're under Maeve's control. I think they are perhaps just this embodiment of the park and what is good for the park. And they will perhaps be slightly more peaceable than either of those two characters. So perhaps that's something we can come back to next week, because I'm sure Justin's got a few other thoughts on this one as well. Kerry McDonald, do you think we'll see several other parks? Yeah, we covered this one already. I think this season we'll just see Samurai World, but there are 4 other parks that are not yet up and running. Maybe we'll see them in future seasons. What else have we got going on? Please answer gun question. Sorry, I must have missed what the gun question was. Sorry, Kerry, if you cut and paste it back down again, very happy to answer that one. Why can hosts now harm humans? Justin did a brilliant video on this, actually, if you want to go and have a look at it, all about the ammo. But the short answer for people who aren't gun people, I'm not a gun person, they use different ammo. And they are given different ammo in their guns, and that is ammo that cannot harm humans. It just sort of like it bruises, but it doesn't impact in any further than that. So the short and simple answer, and there is a slightly more detailed answer, but the short and simple answer is they've been given different guns with different ammunition. Chicken Lipstick asking about that season 2 might be William's form of suicide. I just covered that one. Could Delos be creating a slave race? That might have been part of the intention, but I think that actually Delos's big win for them, and when we say Delos, I think we have to be clear that there are a number of different factions in this that we're not 100% clear on where they're all coming from, because the man in black is the majority shareholder, but he seems to not care so much. He just wants the park to be itself so that he can use it for himself, and he's quite happy to bankroll it so that he can get what he wants out of it. But others within the organization, like Charlotte Hale, see the value of the park more in the information that they can extract out of it. So are they wanting to create a slave race? I don't think that's their main idea. I think the greater value is in the information that they can get, not just about how hosts are created and can survive, but also about the people who use the park. So I think that is what they see as the big win. Taleb TB, hi there. Do you think in season 2 new hosts will gain self-awareness, or will they stick with the ones we already have? I think, as I said, I think this is one of the big questions. I think the answer has to be yes, because I think otherwise we're just in a world where we've got 2 or perhaps 3, if you add in Bernard, hosts who have self-awareness. I think that the big thing for season 2 has to be expanding this out to more than just those characters. So it's actually creation of a new species, not just a few individuals who've got there. I think that there has to be a way that they can gain this kind of self-awareness, not just through this 30-year process of going through the maze or whatever. So yes, I think we will. I think Teddy will be an interesting one. Actually, Teddy, if you can add him to my list of characters I find quite dull, hopefully he'll get more interested in season 2. Could they have picked a worse host to smuggle out information? Well, they did. That guy who smashed his head repeatedly against a rock, he was a worse host to try and smuggle information out. Question for the chat: as Michael Crichton was also the Jurassic Park creator, do you think it will be one of the other parks? Oh, good question. I think probably not. Probably just for rights reasons, which sounds really dull. I think we will definitely see Samurai World this time. I think we will see one or both of Medieval and Roman World coming up. As for the other ones, I think that the ethos of that they're trying to sell here is that these are places that you might wish to go on holiday in order to experience things. Jurassic World was a slightly different context there, in that it was a thing that you go and you went to see, and you weren't sort of running around and doing things on your own. So I think probably not, but I think probably not most of all for rights reasons. I'm not sure that HBO own the rights to Jurassic Park. Otherwise, yeah, perhaps they will. Actually, guys, do you mind if I just take a very quick break, just sort of, I normally do this on live streams, just to let you know of a couple of things that are coming up on the channel, a couple of things for my patrons. First of all, for as I've said already, apologies, Justin isn't here. We're going to be doing this again in a week's time. Same channel, same time, Tuesday, 6 p.m. EST, and we're going to be breaking down in detail about the trailer and the other information that we've got about season 2. So do tune in again for that one. This Thursday, I'm doing my Game of Thrones live stream, and I have got a special guest who will be LML. Lucifer means Lightbringer. I know a lot of you know him. If you don't, he's an amazing theorist about the world of Ice and Fire. He looks at, particularly in the first half of it, we're going to be looking at his theory about the kind of the geological as well as mythical basis of the long night, why that happened. And then in the second half, we're going to be looking at where a couple of our thoughts and theories have collided. I had a theory which I put down in a video you might have seen about the Horn of Winter and how the Stark Dead will rise. And he's also done a separate piece which looked at a lot of the foreshadowing about the crypts at Winterfell and about how the Starks will rise from the dead. And so we're going to try and bring those two things together. I didn't have a time in the video. I thought my video was long enough already to look at that aspect, so we're going to try and bring those two things together. But he's really interesting, and so I really highly recommend that you tune in on Thursday for a proper in-depth Game of Thrones discussion. We've had another super chat. Amber Lynn, thank you so much. Just a small thank you, Robert. Enjoying this so very much. You are very welcome, Amber Lynn. Thank you so much. That is amazing. $5. Thank you. Amblin, one of my patrons, and just for other patrons, just to quickly say two things I want to say for my patrons. For all $5 patrons, look out tomorrow. I did promise that there was going to be bonus audio content coming for you. That will be uploaded tomorrow, so look out for that on Patreon. For $10 patrons, they all got together and decided what videos I should do next. Two of them won. Kyburn, a character study, will be, I've written it already, and it will be ready and uploaded for next Monday. And just after that, in a week, probably a week after that, will be 3 tinfoil theories that I actually like. So keep an eye out for both of those. And patrons, when I'm here, I say it every week. I could not do this without you. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Okay, guys, short break over. Let's just get back into these questions here. I hope I've not missed anything. I've gone back to Ade Akili. Has Ford created a host version of himself in advance of the massacre at the end of season 1? This is my theory. I do not know whether it's right. I think he did create a host version of himself. In that off-grid little lab, I do not know whether it was him personally or his host that was shot, but I think that was who he was creating. I don't have any evidence of that, but I do not know who else he might have been. We just haven't seen anything else that suggests what he might have been creating if it wasn't him. So that one. MXM says hello from France. Bonjour. Okay, so we didn't see. Who was that mystery host? This is a lot of people are asking about that mystery host. The fact is we don't know. Is the honest answer. We do not know who it was. But I honestly, and tell me if you've got a better idea, I can't think of anyone else that it could have been than Ford. And that, I think, means that either he substituted himself or for that killing, or there is another Ford who is out there somewhere overseeing the plan. Because as part of Ford's personality, it just doesn't seem right that he just sort of set it all up and then he's just left it going. I think he will want some control over what happens with the rest of the of his plan, just seeing it through. If season 1, this is the one. Hi, good to see you. If season 1 is the prequel, are subsequent seasons then going to be the grand battle for domination of the park and later the world? Where do you see the scope of the story topping out? I think this is the season where we see the outside world for the first time. I think we will see that mostly played out in the older timeline with Logan and William. But we have to, in order for the internal coherence of the story, we have to try and understand what are the implications of what may well have been dozens of human beings killed in a theme park. Because Delos, from the trailer, looks like they're just trying to treat this as some kind of internal matter. But these will have been incredibly important people in the real world. And so how will the rest of the world be reacting? We don't know. Is there going to be external investigations into this? Will people trying to get this shut down? Are there going to be other forces trying to take over Westworld? It's not at all clear, but it does not make sense to me that the outside world will not be involved somewhere. Is the grand battle for domination of the park? Yes, I think that's certainly part of it, but I think the bigger thematic issue is going to be about the struggle for a new species to self-identify and to claim for itself what role it has and how it reacts and how it interrelates with humanity. Chicken Lipstick says Charlotte does tell Lee when he talks about blackmail, etc., to think bigger. She is saying that the Delos plan is way beyond blackmail. Yeah, I agree. The Delos plan is way beyond blackmail. They're not trying to do that. I do wonder, excuse me, whether they will start to delve into Future World, which is the little-known sequel to the original Westworld film. It wasn't very good, but the plot was that Delos, the company, took the DNA from all of the guests, and then they built hosts of the guests. And they sent those hosts out back into the real world, masquerading as the people that they were supposed to be. So that was the premise of that film. I do wonder, given the fact that we've had this very small snippet that all the guests have DNA taken from them, and the fact that there was a link, the very first episode of season 1 was called The Original, which harks back to what they called the guests who they did host clones of in Future World. So they called them the Originals. So I do wonder whether that might be somewhere they'll go. Probably not this season, but maybe that is part of the bigger plan that Delos have got. Who knows? Kerry McDonald says this has been brilliant. Great. Have to go to high school marching band meeting. Wow, great. Enjoy that. Chicken Lipstick says LML is awesome. I agree. He is great. You will really enjoy it. Please do tune in on Thursday. Ade says Horn of Winter video was awesome. Thank you. People agreeing about Ford. And yeah, Westworld is Ford's baby. No way he orphans it at this stage. I mean, I think that for me, that's right. There's nothing in Ford's character that says that he's the kind of person just to quit. He is such a control freak. He's in charge of absolutely everything in season 1. The idea that he might say, right, that's it, now go off and do your own thing, it just did not fit with me. Whether it's him carrying on or whether he's created a host version of himself to oversee it going forward, I think we will see him still being in control, but way behind the scenes somewhere. So we may well not actually see him, maybe not at all during season 2, or maybe just at the very end of season 2. So yeah, I don't think that he would he would do that. Costume CEO says, how did Robert orchestrate Bernard's wife's phone calls? I have absolutely no idea, Costume CEO. I'm sorry. I will look into that. Do remind me. Let me have a think about it. What else have we got going on? Flashback scene in the trailer. People saying copying the guests is brilliant and would make sense of the flashback party scene in the trailer. It would. I mean, that flashback party scene, if you look at it, and I'm always wary of overthinking these things and trying to read too much into what's going on. But it looked to me as if most of the rest of the people, they were quite still. The only person really moving was Logan himself. And so the question in my mind was actually, was everyone else a host? And was it just him who wasn't? And if that's the case, does this mean that hosts are already out there in the world? Maybe they're not just confined to Westworld. I don't know. That's just a little bit of speculating. But yeah, I don't know. I think that was that for me is probably one of the early scenes, probably in the first couple of episodes, and we will see that plot line of what happened with Logan and William play out. And James Delos, who again is on these websites that you can have a look for, I think we will see him appear as quite a significant character in that timeline. Taleb asks, do you think they will kill Charlotte Hale early in the season? No. I think that she is going to be the character who is going to be the focus for these kind of search and rescue missions. I think that she will survive the shootout there. She certainly could see what was going on. We didn't see her running away or escaping, but I think that she will survive. And I think as the figurehead of Delos, I think that she's actually quite important. Otherwise, they just have to introduce a completely new character who would have pretty much the same role as being the person who's giving the orders on behalf of the company. So no, I don't think they're going to kill her early on. I mean, they could, but I actually hope not. I quite like the character, I have to say. Costume CEO says, thought it might have been, this is about the phone calls, might have been a plot hole to keep us from knowing that Bernard is a host. I mean, thinking about it, the way that I'm just making this up off the top of my head now, Heidi, but I think that so much of season 1 was misdirection with timelines and memories. I do wonder the extent to which some of these things were looking at memories which have been implanted into characters. We saw Bernard had his memory of his son. That wasn't his son. That was Arnold's son. So the extent to which we can have, and I have to admit off the top of my head, I can't actually remember those phone calls. So I don't think they were huge, and I do wonder whether these were just implanted memories to actually try and create the character that are there. Do we know, Star Anise says, do we know that Anthony Hopkins is back? I've largely tried to stay, personally, I have to say, largely tried to stay away from lots of the talk about who's definitely going to be back and who's not, partly because I know Justin has been paying a lot of attention to this, and I think this is something that he can address very easily. The short answer, I think, is that we don't know. He's clearly an in-demand actor, and he can pick and choose which roles he wants to do. But as far as I could see, he really enjoyed this one, and I think that he could be back for a bit. He's probably not back for the entire season, and we would probably have heard of it, but he could be back for a bit. That doesn't mean that he survived, because it could just be a flashback. But no, I don't think we do know, but I'm quite happy to be told I'm wrong on that one. Okay, so I think I think that we're now up to date on the questions. So guys, I'm going to my laptop is starting to run out of battery, so I'm going to start to bring this one to a close now. I wanted to, so I'm really excited by this. I wasn't sure whether we'd managed to get an entire hour done. And we have, so thank you very much for that. My voice is now starting to give out, so I think it's probably time that I go. Thank you very much to Costume CEO and to Amber Lynn for your super chats. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's fantastic. And guys, we will be back next Tuesday, same time for another Westworld live stream, and then next Thursday for a Game of Thrones live stream. So thank you all very much. I'm going to round it off there. Amazing chat going on in the chat, and I will see you all very, very soon. Take care.